of solar street light, mainly in informal settlement, so that we will be able to give freedom for people living in the ITSs to move at night and to go from their tent into the toilet, and to ensure more security for them at night. This is how the solar street light are located in different ITSs. And here's the solar street light after the installation. You can see here some media coverage of the event and the project that we are doing. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. I will allow for 2 minutes question. Unless there is no question, I will go ahead and move to the last presentation today about the impact of hosting refugees on utilities and services provision in Jordan. And I would like to introduce Mr. Salameh Mahasneh. Engineer Salameh, he is around 20 years experience in the field of project management and wastewater engineering, and he's also has an experience in planning and strategic planning, costing, supervision of a project investments. So he has a civil engineering background. Please, Engineer Salameh, go ahead. You have 15 minutes only.
Thank you, Ibrahim. As you know, the subject of the impact of Syrian refugees on Jordan water utilities is a very big subject. So what I will try to do is to summarize first of all, to summarize the water situation in Jordan before hosting the refugees. After that, I will try also to talk about the development of the crisis in Jordan and our ministry proposed solution to tackle this crisis. I will talk also about the cost of hosting refugees, and finally about the Jordan Response Plan, JRP 2017-19.
Please close to the mic,
Okay.
Salameh.
First of all, about the pre-conflict situation in Jordan. If we have a country with 1,700 cubic meter per year per capita per year, then it's in a stress level. And if it's less than 1,000 cubic meter per capita per year, this is the scarcity level. When we are talking about Jordan, it's 147 million cubic meter per capita per year. So you can imagine what's the Jordanian situation, and this is before hosting the Syrian refugees. Before hosting the Syrian refugees, we have a natural expansion of the population. We have the climatic change conditions as everywhere. We are applying rationing system, and that means that we are providing water once a week in most of the Jordanian governorates. In some area, we are providing water once only every 2 weeks. We did not have the enough budget for our crucial and important water projects. Also, our operational cost is very high. We are transporting water for very long distances and for a very big elevation differences. And because of that, we are paying a very high electricity bill. And all of that is our situation even before hosting one refugee. So it's simply a crisis on top of a crisis. That's what's happening in Jordan. The water demand has been increased by 21% after hosting the refugees. In the Northern Governorate, it has been increased by 40%. Now, based on the latest estimation, we have only 123 cubic meter per capita per year. We are hosting like 1.3 million total Syrian refugees. The percentage of the refugees to the total population is like 13%, and about 90% of those refugees are living in the host community. So, as you usually when you are thinking about refugees, people are thinking about Zaatari camp or about Azraq camp, but the reality is that only about 10% of the refugees are living in those camps. The rest of the refugees are getting the services, the water and sanitation services, as their hosts, as the Jordanians, because they are living in the host community. To continue about the development of the crisis, I will give one example, which is the case of Mafraq. In Mafraq, the population was almost doubled after hosting refugees. In Mafraq, for example, for the sanitation case, when we are talking about wastewater systems, only 30% of people are served by wastewater systems. And you can imagine what's the health impact and the impact of the groundwater, the pollution of the groundwater that may happen because of hosting this big number of refugees. After hosting the refugees, of course, we were asking for assistance. We were asking for help from donors to tackle this crisis. We were expecting a certain number of funds to get to stand against this crisis, but we are getting only 18% of what we planned to get. The figure that we were requesting from donors, we get out of it only 18%. Part of the impacts, of the direct impacts of hosting refugees is what happened to the aquifers. We have, for example, the Zaatari camp. It's settled over one of the important aquifers, which is Zaatari aquifer. Also, in Jordan, we are almost, especially in the northern governorate, they are almost totally depending on groundwater resources. And the only solution that we have when we have extra demand on water is to extract more and more groundwater. So our groundwater resources are more and more depleted, and groundwater levels are going down.
3 minutes left.
Okay. We have also an old water network, and having more population, serving more people, means extra pressure on those networks. You need to pressurize the water more and more, because you need to increase the quantity that you want to provide people with. To tackle this crisis, MWI is expecting that most of the refugees will stay for a very long time here in Jordan. We are expecting 50% of them to remain here permanently. So when the government starts to prepare its the response plan, we call it Jordan response plan, we have a part in this plan, we call it WASH part, which is related to water and wastewater. Part of the main projects that were mentioned in this plan, the Jordan Response Plan, are related to restructuring of the main water distribution system using renewable energy, and also to make some rehabilitations for the water networks, which is already deteriorated and in a bad situation, and also to expand the area which is covered by wastewater networks. One important subject that I need to mention is the financial cost of hosting refugees. When this financial cost was calculated, it was based on the calculation of direct and indirect cost. And it means the capital cost of implementing projects to host refugees and the operation and maintenance cost. This figure is about 465 Jordanian dinar per refugee per year. And you can imagine that we have now like 1.3 million refugees. You have to multiply it by this number. Also, to prepare this Jordan response plan, we make something we call vulnerability map. This vulnerability map was based on the Syrian per Jordanian percentage and liter per capita per day, and the poverty index, which was calculated by the Jordanian Statistical Department. For example, as you see in this map, the red color means high vulnerability. The Jordan Response Plan goals was focused on first the rehabilitation and enhancing the water situation by improvement of the infrastructure, install new and upgrading the sewage treatment plants and the sewage system, rehabilitation and improvement of water distribution networks, and also about developing the sector capacity, and finally about supporting the reuse of the effluent of the wastewater treatment plants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Salameh. If there is any questions. Finally, before we close, yes, go ahead. Yeah.
You mentioned 456 dinar per refugee per year. What does it mean?
Okay. This number was calculated based on the direct and the indirect cost of hosting refugees. So what we mean by direct cost is the impact of those refugees, first of all, on the operation and maintenance. We have a very high operation and maintenance cost here in Jordan because, for example, when you are talking about transporting water from an area to another, usually we need water to go for very high elevation difference. Sometimes it reaches more than 1,500 meters. This is number one, which is the operation and maintenance cost. The other cost is related to the capital cost of investing in new projects. When you have more population, you need to increase the diameter of your pipes. You need to look for new resources. And because of that, you can see that the cost of having more population because they are extra population. As I said before, 90% of them are living in the host community. So having more populations means having more projects and paying more cost.
Thank you, Engineer Salameh. Yes, last question.
Yeah, marhaba.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. My question is, what's the role of the water authority in Jordan in coordinating the WASH response to the Syria crisis? So are you leading the WASH response in Jordan in general, or how is it done? Secondly, you mentioned in one of the slides and I think it was in the recommendation to have subsidized to water authorities tariff. So how is it also in terms of the budget or the cost of provision of water and sanitation for refugees? How is this subsidized for the government, for the water authorities in Jordan?
And regarding our role in managing or coordinating the WASH efforts here in Jordan, we are trying. We have of course partners. We have the UNICEF as our main partner to manage water and wastewater issues. They call it, of course, WASH in general. WASH. We have a task force called WASH Task Force. But what's happening, unfortunately, that most of the UN agencies and NGOs, they are concentrating on humanitarian and emergency issues. But what we need is a medium and long-term solutions. So now, after 5 years of crisis, we have us and them have better understanding of the situation. And of the needs of projects to be implemented in the upcoming years. But again, till now, there's a problem of the understanding of the crisis between us and them. We are looking to those refugees as an extra population, and we think that we need to implement more and more infrastructure and projects. Of course, the UN agencies and the NGOs have the mentality of crisis management and humanitarian issue management. For the second part, I think Ibrahim will better answer it.
Thank you. Maybe because I'm representing also the Jordan Ministry. Concerning the subsidy, how much we subsidize the cubic meter of water, usually the government of Jordan are fully responsible for water and wastewater services, either in camps or in the local communities. So the government tackle its responsibility to manage any kind of water and wastewater interventions. Coming back to the subsidy, we subsidize water tariff with not less than 50%. As a government of Jordan, each cubic meter of water costs around $2, and we subsidize more than $1. So we still subsidizing, and we will continue subsidizing the cost of water because we believe that it is a right, not good. Last issues before we close, I would like just to share that some of the cost of Syrian refugees is coming from the what we call it opportunity cost. That being lost from the hosting huge fluxes of refugees, either starting from the 1948 from Palestine refugees up to this date that we receive huge fluxes of refugees. The cost consists of what we call it opportunity cost. Our investment plan was designed to serve all Jordanian with water supply, governmental connections by 2020, and unfortunately, because of refugees has come with a huge influxes, we postponed and we shift our plans to and capital investments to more and more years. This is actually one of the content of how we can calculate the cost of Syrian refugees. This is the last. If there is no questions, I would like just to thank all our speakers here today for the interesting presentation, and thank you for kind attention. Thank you. Thank you.